So James Harden made his comeback to Houston yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. And right before the game, a couple hours before the game, the owner of the Rockets said they're thinking about retiring his number after he forced himself out of Houston. What do you guys think about that? Should they retire his number or should they not?
All right, I think they should retire his number, but not so soon. The thing is, when you retire a player's number, it basically means you feel me. You respect what they did for your franchise, and it basically puts him up with the upper echelons of your franchise. You know, Hakeem Olajuwon, for example, for the Rockets, Yao Ming. But I think the way Harden left the team, you feel me, it deserves. It kind of sullies his reputation with the Rockets. So I don't think he should get his jersey retired as soon as possible. When Dwayne Wade retired, retire his jersey as soon as possible. When Kobe retired, retire his jersey as soon as possible. But James Harden, let him wait a bit. You feel me? Like how Miami Heat letting LeBron James jersey wait a bit. You feel me? Just letting them marinate. Of course, nobody gonna wear number 6 in Miami again. But let it wait a bit. You feel me? Just let it chill. The reason why I think James Harden's reputation is sullied a little bit, of course, the way he left, but also what he did when he was there. You know, we hear a lot of stories about James Harden, the bad teammate. You feel me? Him basically going at a strip club, coming back in, dropping 40 and triple double. Even though he dropped 40 and triple double, it's not the right way. It's not the best example except for your teammates. And I think that right there is probably a reason why his teammates didn't necessarily follow the best leadership, and they didn't win. I think eventually he should get it, but not right away.
Yeah, I think not right away. I think they should even question if they should retire it at all. Really, that's how I feel. The way that he went out, because I mean, it's like, what more could they have given this man? What more could they have done? They first, let's not even talk about the money, because he was gonna get his money regardless. They gave him Chris Paul, then he didn't want him. They gave him Russ, then he didn't want him. They gave him Dwight Howard. He couldn't make it work. All I'm saying is, for a franchise to give one man everything that he wanted, and for him to go out the way he did, you know, out of shape, not taking care of his body, you know, I understand that in this league, players should have a right to voice their opinion. It shouldn't be basically, if the team want to trade you, it's okay, but if you want to trade, then you're a bad locker room guy. I get that 100%, but to retire a guy's jersey while he's still playing, all you're doing is feeding into his ego. You don't reward that type of behavior on his way out. You make him wait. You don't throw a tantrum and then get your jersey retired. I just don't see it. I don't see how that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm stuck because, like, James Harden became James Harden in Houston, right? But like Rob said, you gotta wait. You can't just retire his jersey while he's still playing. Has that ever happened? I don't think it's ever happened where someone's jersey was getting retired while it's still playing. And then it comes to question, should he even get his jersey retired at all? And is 8 seasons, because I think he spent eight years in Houston, is 8 years to a franchise enough for you to just retire his jersey? Usually when someone gets their jersey retired, it's like a franchise lifer, or they spend like 10 plus years there. It's rare that someone 8 years there, and the furthest he's gone was what? Has he made the Western Conference Finals? Once, twice.
Once. Against the Warriors.
Yeah, but Chris Paul got hurt.
Yeah, like I don't know if I would retire his jersey at all, to be honest. Like, yes, he's a great player. He's a generational talent. But has he done enough for the Houston Rockets? We're not going to talk about the city of Houston. We're just going to talk about the Houston Rockets. Has he done enough for that franchise for them to retire his jersey? I would have to say no.
See, the way I go about it is, I feel like, you know, when you talk about the Hall of Fame, you got to ask yourself, could you talk about the history of the NBA without mentioning this person? And I think of it the same way with retiring jerseys with the franchise. Could you talk about the Houston Rockets in general without mentioning James Harden? I think because James Harden basically defined 8 years of the Houston Rockets franchise, you have to put him in there. But you have to think about how the 8 years were and how soon can you actually retire his jersey. I don't think the 8 years were that luxurious and that, you feel me, star-studded. Because of that, I wouldn't necessarily retire it so soon, but I think he should absolutely get his jersey retired, just because you can't really tell the Houston Rockets journey without including James Harden, and arguably, the most fleece of a trade. Sorry, Panda, I know you're OKC fan, but that was a fleece of a trade.
Kevin.
I just have one more thing to add. I think when you talk about jersey retirement, it's about what that player did for the franchise. I think we gotta not confuse what James Harden did for himself with what he did for the franchise. You know what I'm saying? Being a scoring leader, MVP. You know what I'm saying? That's all great. Multiple time perennial all-star. James Harden has been a top 2 player or a top 3 player for like the last 5-6 years. Like, no one can argue that, at least in the regular season. But that was all about individuality. He hasn't had a ring. We haven't even seen his Rockets in the finals. And to talk jersey retirement before he even retires himself, that's a stretch, man. That's a stretch.
All right, I know we're gonna talk about Damian Lillard later on in the podcast, but let me ask you a question: would you retire Damian Lillard's jersey?
If he decides to stay, absolutely. Because Dame's message from day one has been, I want to win here. I don't want to go make a super team. I want guys. If guys want to come here, they can. If they don't, that's cool. I'm all about Portland and what he does off the court as well. We don't even have to talk about that. Damian Lillard is definitely going to get his jersey retired, though, 100%.
I would agree if Dame stays in Portland. If he stays in Portland and retires in Portland, not even retires in Portland, but if he stays another 5-6 years in Portland, I feel like they should retire his number and he will get his number retired. That's all I really got to say about that one.
But if we're talking about this under the guise of we believe Dame is probably not going to win a championship in Portland in the next 5 years and he does retire, it's the same thing with James Harden. I mean, he put up a lot of individual accolades. Even Damian Lillard didn't put up as much as James Harden, but a lot of accomplishments for Damian Lillard was just individual. His team didn't necessarily win. I don't think his team even went to the Western Conference Finals. So could you really justify retiring Damian Lillard's jersey and not justify James Harden's jersey?
If or when Dame leaves, it all depends on how he leaves, because James Harden, even he said it, the way he left Houston wasn't right. It was a bad thing, not a bad thing to do, but it was the bad way to go about it. It wasn't the right way to go about it. If Dame stays loyal to Portland and he just keeps grinding it out and keeps balling for them how he has been for the next couple years, I don't feel like it would be the same thing, because he gave his all to that franchise and he just couldn't get it done.
I mean, not only that, there are in certain situations there are extreme circumstances. A team like Houston, that's a big market team. They're going to find another guy. And Harden, although he's a big part of that franchise, he's not the only guy that you think about. Everybody thinks about Hakeem. I don't know who's better than Damian Lillard as a all-time Portland Trailblazer player. What he does for that small team, that small market, not a lot of guys have that kind of loyalty. Plus, he makes them relevant. That's not even he ups the value of that team in a big way. So I think when it comes to small market teams, they really appreciate the guy that stayed. He ignored the big market offers, and to them, that's jersey retirement worthy. So that's why I think that it's a little bit different there. But I see what you're saying. I definitely see what you're saying.